The Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by Reaper Apparel Company. Reaper Apparel offers a casual line of superb fit, finish, and comfort. We design for those who refuse to die slowly and choose to live untamed. For those who aren't afraid to face the dark, for the ones that thrive in it, and for those who can appreciate life through a grim lens. That's Reaper Apparel Company. Go to the link in the description of this episode, use the promo code Mike Bono, and get 10% off. Also, the Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by my own personal merch store, the Stupid Should Hurt merch store. I have hats, I have t-shirts, hoodies, coffee mugs, water bottles, notebooks, you name it, I've got it. The description and the link for that will be in the description of this episode. Also, right now, if you use the promo code WELCOME, I will give you 5% off of your first purchase. That's the Stupid Should Hurt merch store. Also, the Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by Tactical Brotherhood, all-American made apparel, which helps support the Second Amendment. You can also find all this in the description of this episode with the link, Tactical Brotherhood. Part of every proceed does go to helping veterans, as it is a very good cause. All American-made products made right here in Minnesota. Go and check them out. Use the promo code PATRIOT15 to get 15% off your purchase. Now, let's start the show. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Ride Home Rants podcast. This is, as always, your host, Mike Bono. I have a great and very special roundtable with a panel of guests, but first and foremost, we did just land a new sponsor that I want to get out here, and it is from our good friend and former guest of the show, Matt Landowski and Sweet Hands Sports. Elevate your game with Sweet Hands Sports. Our sports gloves are designed for champions, providing ultimate grip and durability. Achieve greatness with every match. Choose Sweet Hands Sports for the winning edge. Grip your victory at sweethandsports.com. Tell them Mike Bono sent you, and you won't be disappointed. We just got word from them that the own Pittsburgh kid Neil Walker actually used these gloves, so please go and check them out, sweethandsports.com. That being said, we have our NFL Draft Recap show, and I have a panel of guests here that are going to break down the draft, the winners, the losers, and everything in between. So I will let them go ahead and introduce themselves, and we're going to start with Bob.
Yep, Bob Gavalier here from Youngstown, Ohio, and I do high school football on 1390 AM in Youngstown.
All right. You've heard him on, I think he's become pretty much a staple here on the round tables, but Mister.
Yes, sir. Mister Askew from Cincinnati, Ohio, defensive coordinator at Minnesota North College at Vermillion in Ely, Minnesota.
All right. You've heard him on here before, formerly of the XFL Brahmas, Jose
Jefferson, originally from Omaha, Nebraska. I'm the executive director of the College Gridiron Showcase that we just completed our 10th year. So thanks for having me on.
Not a problem. Glad to have you back. And one of the staples at Bethany College when I was there as the head coach, he's now at Brown University, Tim.
Thanks, Mike. Excuse me. Tim Weaver. I'm the defensive coordinator at Brown University. As Mike said, I was the head coach and athletic director at Bethany, where I also coached your newest sponsor, Lando. He was our long snapper.
Absolutely. Lando was an animal when I was there. I remember him breaking a face mask while he was there and announcing that game. But rounding out our panel of guests is legendary head coach Hal.
Yeah, Hal Mumme, head coach several places, currently living in Texas, and happy to take part.
Nah, no problem. Happy to have you back here, Coach. But we're going to get this draft show started and get everything broken down. And Hal, this first question is actually just for you. You actually coached former NFL number 1 overall draft pick in Tim Couch to the Cleveland Browns. As a college coach, what was it like during the pre-draft process with all the NFL teams?
It was pretty hectic. I mean, Tim had a really nice pro day, and he came out as a junior, so he wasn't allowed to go to the combine. So his pro day was a pretty anticipated event. They asked him to do a lot of nonsensical stuff, which he made look easy, and like they had him stand on the right hash mark and throw a 20-yard comeback off of a double move to the left sideline. And one scout standing there goes, "Well, that's enough for me. That's all I need to see." I go, "Really? If I go to your place and look at all your cut-ups, how many times will I see that route on film?" He looked at me. He goes, "Okay, point taken." I mean, they were just asking. They just want to see how he could throw and stuff. So it was kind of interesting to watch, but kind of hectic also around the office.
I'm sure all these NFL teams kind of probably buzzing around for him and everything like that, and all up in your business. But for this year's draft, which was kind of a rare one, Bob, let's go to you. Which team won this year's draft in your opinion?
There's a lot of teams I think did well. Obviously, I think the Bears did well with their 2 picks in the first round. I also like with the Cardinals. The Cardinals kind of loaded up, getting I think the best player in the draft with Harrison. I think he's going to help with Murray and them getting some other guys along the way. I think they did really well too. So I like two of those guys. I think the Bears, of course, getting Caleb's, we'll see how he does, but getting the Doomsday later on kind of helped them solidify, the 1-2 punch there for them.
Absolutely. Coach Tim Weaver, what do you think? Who's your winners and losers, or winners?
I agree a little bit about the Bears. I think the Steelers had a really nice draft. They when you added in with their offseason and then to take the 3 offensive linemen, which was a big position of need for them. People are knocking the Bears a little bit for not getting the other edge rusher on a cheap contract with Sweat. They're paying him a bunch of money. So, but I do think they had a really good draft. The punter's a sneaky good pick. Those guys, if you can get the right one, they last. Their shelf life is really long. So I like the Bears and the Steelers draft a lot.
Absolutely. I particularly like the Steelers draft myself, mainly because I am a WVU fan and taking Zach Frazier, who I think is going to be a sleeper at center. They got him probably on the cheap in the second round, I think. Could have been a first rounder in my opinion, but I am a little biased with being a West Virginia fan. But Hal, what about you? Who's your winners in this year's draft?
I like the Chiefs. I think they made some good choices. They got the fastest guy in the draft for Mahomes to throw to. I think they've needed somebody to kind of replace that role that Tyreek Hill played for him, and I think they found that. Their top 3 picks were all on offense, so I think they're set to make another run.
Absolutely. Mister, what about you?
I think I'm going to go with Pittsburgh Steelers, with them getting the offensive lineman and them also adding who they add to during the offseason with the quarterback situation. I think they did real well in upgrading their, the quarterback and the O-line. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. But also, I believe Minnesota might have had a good upgrade as well in the quarterback situation. But we'll just have to see when time comes. But Pittsburgh and Minnesota, I think.
Okay, Jose, what about you?
I'm not a big fan, but I thought Denver did pretty well. I mean, especially trading for Zach Wilson to pick up Bo Nix. I mean, I just think he's a better quarterback personally, but to solidify that quarterback room and then what they put around them. I mean, Sean Payton's creating the team. That's why I thought it was a win for them because, he fell into a team that wasn't his and took a lot of crap for what went on. And the low-hanging fruit for the bad draft is Atlanta. I don't get that. I just didn't get the pick, and they really didn't surround Kirk Cousins with anybody else and didn't do anything for the rest of the draft outside of the big pick with Penix. That really didn't make a lot of sense, but that's me.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. And it actually leads us right into what I had next here for us. We'll stay with you, Jose, with this one. With the multiple quarterbacks that were taken in the first round, Most are going to end up playing right away on bad teams. Do you believe this is the right thing to do with teams, or should they be backups this year and play later? Players like Jordan Love, Patrick Mahomes, Carson Palmer, Chad Pennington are quarterbacks who were drafted in the first round and had very good careers as they learned as the backup. So what do you think about this year's quarterbacks starting right away, Jose?
But when they do those things, you have to remember those situations they've been in. I mean, Mahomes was behind Alex Smith, and Jordan Love was behind, A-Rod. They had great situations to go learn. These kids coming in right away. I guess it depends on who the coordinator is. And I think Hal can probably attest to that. I mean, I think environment matters. Look at Bryce Young compared to C.J. Stroud. C.J. Stroud caught it coming, he wasn't this, he wasn't that. And he goes to Houston, he lights it up, and Bryce Young's Heisman Trophy winner, number one pick, and, his environment just wasn't very good. But these kids nowadays, I think they're a lot smarter. I think the access is a lot better to watch film. Virtual reality is something that I know LSU uses quite a bit, but I think they're probably more prepared. But I'm to the school of sit and learn, so you can play great for a long time as opposed to struggle and try to pick it up on the run. But that's just me.
Yeah, I get it. I think with leading in with the Atlanta Falcons, I think Penix is going to sit behind Cousins for a couple of years. You give a guy 4 years, $180 million. I don't think you're sitting him for a rookie. I don't foresee that happening. But, Mister, what about you with the quarterbacks?
You know what, man? With the quarterback situation, we'll start at Atlanta. Which is a very interesting choice with who they picked up. I think I think they was looking for an insurance policy with Kirk Cousins. And then I guess they was looking long term and picking somebody in the draft, and they got Michael Penix Jr. Because when you look at what Kirk Cousins did throughout his NFL career, I mean, he has one playoff win maybe, I think, if memory serves me correctly. So they're really looking to upgrade and they're really looking for a long term solution. Other than that, who has Atlanta Falcons had a quarterback? They had Riddler. But that didn't pan out or whatnot. So I think they're looking really to solidify that quarterback situation. Saying they're in Atlanta, and hopefully they got their guy, who they want. But again, paying somebody. He's Kirk Cousins, 35 years old. He got a 4-year deal, $180 million, and $100 million is guaranteed. I don't know. So, he's going to be 40 years old if he live out that contract. And I doubt if he, saying live out that contract. So I think they was looking to really get somebody, from the draft.
Yeah, for sure. Hal, what about you?
I'm kind of intrigued by Drake May and the pick the Patriots had. I think that's interesting. And I also like the Bo Nix pick at Denver. I think both those organizations help themselves, and two guys that probably not quite as talked about as the top guys, but I think they'll have a chance to learn and make an impact in a year or two.
Okay. Coach Weave, what about you?
I'll kind of keep my comments towards the top of the draft. I liked Caleb Williams. I thought Jaden Daniels was the best player in the draft after getting to watch him, and I know everybody thought he was skinny, and then he weighed 210 pounds at the combine. If they were paying me to do it, which nobody has offered to do, I would have taken Daniel first. I just think he's going to be awesome. Caleb might be 2, but I saw him. The one thing I always go back to, the year I was out of coaching was Sam Darnold and Josh Rosen's senior year in college. And I watched those two guys, and all year they're going 1 and 2 in the draft. And I watched them, and I said, I would not touch either of those two guys anywhere near the top of it. And, I don't, for whatever reason, I was right that year, and I just kind of felt, I think both these kids are going to be good, but I just thought Jaden Daniels was better.
Yeah, Honestly, with that pick, I really thought there was going to be a shock in this draft and that the Bears were going to take Daniels, number one. And then there was going to be a scramble, what's wrong with Caleb Williams? And he was going to fall in the draft, kind of like Aaron Rodgers did. Everyone thought he was going to be a top pick, and he fell to the Packers. But didn't happen. Caleb Williams, number one overall pick. But, Bob, what about you?
I agree with what Jose said about the environment that they're going into. And you look at, from last year with Bryce Young going into Carolina, who was just a terrible football team. And then you got Stroud with a great team in Houston who really built around him. And then, so you look at the two top guys, I think, the Bears weren't that bad last year. They were 7-10, but they got the top pick because they got Carolina's pick. So I think if you look at Williams, going to go into a little bit better situation, I think, than in Washington. Daniels, he's going to play his heart out, I'm sure, but I'm sure Williams got a lot of guys around him, so that's something to look at. And then you got New England, who's really bad. So Drake May, if he does start right away, I think he's going to struggle early on and stuff. And it's going to take him a while, and especially being in that AFC East. It's a very talented East where they'll probably end up in last place again.
I got you. Sticking with the quarterback theme here, though, somebody that wasn't really talked about up until about a week before the draft, J.J. McCarthy. What do you think his ceiling in the NFL is, Bob?
We'll be back after a quick break.
Big labia energy.
But if I eat a little cheese every day,
just keep it.
It's like I have a tolerance. Yeah, for cheese.
Good
Same
job
with
building up
cats.
your tolerance.
Like if I pet a cat every day for the first week or two.
I thought you were gonna say if I eat a cat a little bit every day, starting at the tail and just ate a little bit, that'd be fine. But if I didn't eat a cat for 3 months,
I would totally start at the face. Why would you start at the tail? If someone put a gun to my head and said, "Eat this cat," I'm trying to think of an acceptable scenario.
About a feline, right?
Oh, did you think I was talking about pussy?
Maybe it could go there.
I don't want to eat a cat. I want to eat a pussy.
He's a guy that I watched a couple times him play where they kind of had a good team around him. And once again, the product of the environment where Michigan was just so loaded and stacked. The only concern with me is I watched him against Penn State where they didn't throw the ball in the second half of the one game. So that concerns me a little bit when you got a guy like that and all you do is run the ball, keep it on the ground against a Penn State defense. So we'll see. But he did come out. He played well in the bowl games. And so that's the concern is I think that's what helped him. So, and once again, he's going to somewhere where the Vikings have a lot of guys around him, receivers. So I think that's a good spot for him. Or if you looked at maybe he would have went at third at the New England or maybe to someone else, he might not have been as well as he's going to be against the Vikings, I think.
My personal opinion, I watched him play a good bit last year, and I think he's going to surprise people like Stroud did last year. Like nobody was giving him a chance, including me. I still don't. Ohio State just doesn't seem to produce NFL level quarterbacks, in my opinion, and there's facts to back that up, but. I think McCarthy looked good from when I watched and what games I got to watch. I even watched that Penn State game where they ran the ball the entire second half. But I think he's going to surprise a lot of people. But Coach Weaver, what about you? What's McCarthy's ceiling as an NFL player to you?
That's a hard one. I've really hesitate to say what guy's ceilings are. He's really talented. I know they ran the ball great. They were awesome on defense, but when they needed him to make throws, he did it. I just think in the next level, he's going to need to do that a lot more often than he did at Michigan. So I think he's probably the hardest one to predict what his ceiling is. Physically, I don't know if he has one. He's really talented. He can throw the hell out of it. He's big. He's strong. He's obviously a really good leader. So you would say it would be high, but I just wonder what's going to happen when the team he's playing for can't run it for 6 yards a carry and he needs to throw it on every second and third down. How's he going to handle all the different looks he'll see? It's a really interesting question. I'm intrigued by him.
Yeah. Hal, what about you?
On JJ?
Yeah, JJ.
Jury's out. I think I watched him play several times the last couple of years, and he's just surrounded by so much talent at Michigan. It's hard to really say how he's going to do, because they didn't really ever put him in positions where he had to make a lot of back throws, and so we'll see. I don't know. I guess I don't have an opinion yet.
Okay. Mister, being up in Minnesota right now, what do you think about old J.J. McCarthy?
Well, I'll tell you what, it's going to be interesting, to see if he can be consistent and stay consistent. Like Weaver was saying, because in the next level, you got to be able to do that all the time. And when you are surrounded with so much talent as he was, especially from the run game at Michigan, when you get to the next level, you might not have that same type of run game, and they might call on you. What I'm saying, especially on those third downs. Are you going to be able to move the chain? And something, that's going to be something to see with him. How consistent can he be throughout his career? He's probably going to go in there, starting, being the number one guy. And, that's going to add more pressure to him already. And how well is he going to be able to pick it up? Pick up the defensive stunts. The change in coverage, pre and post. So all that stuff is going to play a role. But, we're going to have to see. You'll know in that first preseason game, I'll tell you that right now. The first 2 weeks, you'll see, what he might be this year.
Okay, Jose, round us out here.
I think he's going to be a victim of his quarterback room. He's going to lean on the head coach quite a bit. There's nobody there to push him, quite honestly. I like him. I thought he was athletic as all get out, but if you watch some of his throws, it's typical. And like I said, I refer to Coach Mumme on this. All those quarterbacks, probably with the exception of Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams, are about a tick slow. And if you watch some of those throws, his throws in college are great throws, but in the NFL, they're picks. And that's just what I see from him. But I once again, environment, who's in his quarterback room, and Kevin O'Connell's, obviously a smart coach, but there's nobody there to push him. So like I said, I think his talent will win them games, but, as everybody said, the same thing. Michigan not running the ball in the second half and, and great talent when you can hand the ball off in their line. But just basically a road grading crew. I think all of us could probably run behind that line and be successful. So, to get to the NFL where everybody's fast, everybody's getting paid, and they'll hold serve, but I don't think they'll be a dynamic team. I don't see a Brock Purdy situation coming out of this as much as just a guy who's going to hold serve and he'll be like Jordan Love his first season, hold serve and do some great things, and then do some things you'll be like, what was that? So that's my take on him. Okay. Good player though.
Yeah, we'll see. And like Mister said, that first preseason game is going to be very interesting. But Jose, if you could pick any of the first round picks from this year's draft to be on your team, who would you have picked?
Oh, wow.
Now I'm putting you on the spot. I asked the tough questions here on the draft.
It's a tough question to ask me first, too. Honestly, there's a lot of great players. I'm very impartial to Bo Nix. I truly like him. The guy's got 60-plus games as a starter, went through the downs. All the great ones struggle. And he was horrible at Auburn. Just being plain, just horrible. And then go to Oregon to where they got about 2,000 plays in for every damn game. And for him to be able to master that offense and compete, he's just athletic enough. And I like what Denver is going to do with him, and get some good guys around him and let him be who he is. But I think he's a good guy to, obviously the easy ones are Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels. I don't want to be typical and do what the Bears, and the, Washington did, but I thought Bo Nix could be that type of guy. He really could, to go in two different programs and have two different careers. Because let's be real, would Bo Nix be a 12 or a top 10 pick, or a top 12 pick out of Auburn? No, he wouldn't have been. And he turned it around. And I think that's probably a testament to his character and his hard work that he put in.
Okay. Mister, let's go to you.
I'll tell you what. That's a good question because watching the draft and watching the guys who were available this year and watching them play, I just don't. I might actually try to get me more draft pick. I might have went. And I might have traded. I probably. You know what? I would have. I would have traded. And I would have tried to give me maybe 3 twos or something, three twos or something, because everybody was the same to me. Nobody really stand out. Everybody played about the same. And that's just, you'll see. You'll see. Just watch the season, watch all 32 guys who got picked, who got drafted, and you'll see. They all look the same to me. I would have got more picks. There you go. I would have got more picks. I would have traded out of number 1, and I would have been like, hey, I need three. This number. Here's a 1. Let me get 3 twos. And somebody would have did it too. And I'd be like, thank you. There you go.
Man,
Coach Rand.
I did not expect that from anyone to say they're going to go for more picks with this question, but. Hal, I know you were having some connection issues there. I'm going to repeat the question.
Yeah, we're about to die here, I think.
Right. Well, I'll try to get you in on this question here, but it was out of everyone that was picked in the first round this year, who would have been your draft pick for your team?
Oh, okay, that's a good one. I'm probably would have gone with who was the first receiver picked?
Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah, his name's kind of like escaped me, but that's who I would have gone with.
Okay. Coach Weave, what about you?
Regardless of position, if I didn't need a quarterback and you just tell me which player is going to be a starter and a good to great NFL player for 7 to 10 years, I'd take Joe Alt, the O-lineman at Notre Dame. I just think he's the most can't-miss guy in that top 10. You're always, you're 50-50 on the quarterbacks. Skill guys, pretty easy to predict, but those old linemen that look like him and play like him, they're almost can't miss.
Absolutely. Bob, what about you?
I liked Harrison. I think, watching him, you take Harrison off Ohio State last year, they probably lose like 5-6 games. So I think he's a polished guy. I think he comes from a good bloodline with his dad and stuff like that. So I think he's gonna know what to do as a pro, and I think he's going to a good environment. I think they got Hopkins there to help him out. I think a good guy to study under, and I think you watched him in Ohio State. I mean, there's a lot of times he wanted the ball, he didn't ask for it, and they couldn't get him the football sometimes. But I just think he's the best player in the draft, and I think once again if it wasn't like, the quarterbacks have to go first and second, I think he would have probably been the number 1 pick, I think.
Yeah, I'm torn with this question because I loved what I saw from Bo Nix, like Jose was saying. Like, he, I think, is going to be a solid quarterback for the Denver Broncos. But Marvin Harrison Jr., I don't know how you pass up that type of talent. Like that, I would be using all 10 minutes, and it would come down to the last second for me to turn the ticket in to finally make the pick because I'd be debating between those two. And whether I needed a quarterback or not, I mean, Bo Nix was still one of those guys to me that just kind of, he stands out, and I think he's going to have a great career with Peyton in Denver. But, Bob, what about which one of these teams need their draft picks to contribute right away this year to be successful?
I think it's just the Bears. I think Caleb Williams has to be. I mean, they got rid of Justin Fields, so they know he's the Williams is the guy. He's surrounded with a lot of guys. Their defense wasn't that bad last year, so I think they need him to be the guy that they've drafted number 1. I think for them to be successful this year, I think the Bears and Caleb Williams and Dunze too. I think they drafted him pretty high, so. I think both those guys need to go play well this year and be on the field right away.
Okay. Coach Weave, what about you? Which team needs their draft picks to contribute right away?
Well, unfortunately, it's the Panthers. and I don't know that they can't. Like they're the worst team. You'd hope they get an infusion of guys to come in there. They would be my group that really had the worst day in the draft. They didn't figure out a way to move up, and then the wideout they took with a couple other guys left on the board that I thought were better. I think they need an infusion of good players, and I don't know that they were able to do it. So they need it. I just don't think it's going to happen.
Okay. Mister, what about you?
I have to say Chicago Bears, they need that quarterback from USC to really come in and to be what they think he can be, after get rid of Justin Field. So that's going to be interesting. I would say Chicago Bears most definitely.
Okay. Hal, what about you? Still with us there, Hal? You're muted there, Hal. All right, well, we wait for Hal to get with his technical issues. Jose, what about you?
I'm going to go a little bit off script here, and I'm going to say the Jets. They had a mulligan, obviously, with the Aaron Rodgers year. I thought their draft was solid. I mean, they picked up some key players, but I think those guys aren't going to have the honeymoon period that they anticipate because of Aaron Rodgers. Everybody, but he played four snaps, and then the season went to hell in a handbasket. And so now he's healthy. They made all these trades, and now they apparently picked all these guys who can contribute. So yes, they're going to have to contribute right away because it's not like they're not a year away from being a year away, as much as just they look great on paper. Let's be real. Last year they looked great on paper, and then they fell to pieces when he did. So now if he's healthy, everybody's got to produce, and especially those draft picks need to produce for him as well.
Okay. I think we officially have lost Hal there, but we'll move right along here. Jose, what do you think about the draft being in Detroit?
I like that. I mean, I to watch all that, I think it's tough in the later rounds. You could see the crowd dissipate after the third day, but I think it's great when NFL cities can, show their spirit. And 775,000 people, that's amazing. That was more fun to watch, about as fun to watch as watching the picks. But, that's a once in a lifetime experience from going from Radio Music City Hall, and in New York to outside in Detroit and damn near but Detroit, I don't think is 750,000 people, is it?
I don't think so.
That's amazing.
All right, Mister, what about you?
Hey, I tell you what, that was nice to see. But I got one for you. I would love to see the draft at an HBC school, though. Let's step up the ante. Let's see it at Grambling State, huh? Or Elizabeth City State, Bethune-Cookman, Southern. Come on, NFL. Let's go to the HBC school, man. Let's go back to college. It's the NFL draft. You're picking college players. Let's go. But Detroit was nice. That was good to see. Good for the city.
All right, Coach Weave, what about you?
I thought it was cool in Detroit. The thing about Detroit, nobody that doesn't live in that part of the country realizes that the whole division fan base can drive there pretty easily.
Yeah.
When you do it in Vegas, everybody has to travel. You do it anywhere out west, and almost, the travel's legit real. But the Bears fans, the Vikings fans, the Lions fans, everybody can get there pretty easy. I thought it was really cool. Packers fans, that was great. And they obviously showed up. They got caught a break with the weather. It's super iffy in April, and on the Great Lakes, you could get anything from 75 degrees to a 6-inch snowstorm. So, they got a break in that way, but it was awesome. And everybody showed up. They did a great job, I thought.
Absolutely. Bob, what about you?
I thought it was great, and I agree with Coach Weave there that the weather helped out a lot. I mean, it was beautiful. I remember I feel so bad. Cleveland had it. At the one time Cleveland had it, there was two things against them. They had the COVID restrictions, and then also they had the weather. I mean, I was up there, and it was 30 degrees and snowing that first night. So it was like it wasn't very conducive to being outside. So I think the weather helped out. But then I agree with Coach. We even coming from Cleveland and stuff like that, it's not that far. It's like 4-hour drive to go up there to see them play. So it's kind of like centralized to pretty good fan bases, with the Lions, the Packers, the Browns and stuff like that. So I think that helped out too. But I like that they're moving around to different cities and showcasing each city and kind of showing off the cities. And good to see Detroit come out.
Absolutely. But one thing, since we're talking about it being up there, and everyone's talking about Caleb Williams to the Bears, but did the Bears do the right thing by trading Justin Fields and drafting Caleb Williams? Or should they have kept Fields and traded their first pick, like Mister was saying, to get some more picks and players? Remember, they only had 4 draft picks this year in all, and they had 2 of them in the first round. So, what do you think, Bob?
We'll be back after a quick break.
I'm comedian David Race in Los Angeles. I host a celebrity-filled paranormal talk show like no other. Monstrosity has great guests answering weird questions. You won't believe the combo of celebrities and paranormal experts who've been on this show. I guarantee you'll like Monstrosity, or you get your time back. Go to monstrositypodcast.com right now and take a look.
And I was on the fence with this one because, Fields, I think I saw him play a couple times last year and he didn't do too bad. And so I would have been the guy that would have kept him and then drafted Harrison and got him a weapon to throw to. So I think that was, but I think you probably would have had everybody's head. The fan base wouldn't have been too happy with keeping Fields and getting, but Caleb was the consensus best quarterback. And so I think you didn't want to have him any competition, so you had to kind of get rid of Fields.
I got you. Coach Weave, what about you?
I grew up a Bears fan, so I'm rooting for him always. But that was a brutal decision to have to make. The one thing I would say, I don't know what they did. We won't know if they did the right thing for 3 years. But whatever they did, they had to take Caleb Williams after not saying immediately that they weren't going to. What the Giants did with Daniel Jones, kind of string him along, who the Giants going to take. That doesn't do anybody any favors. If they were going to keep Fields, they should have told him, hey, we're going to keep you. We're either going to trade the pick or draft the best receiver in the draft, whatever. But once it became a month of dragging their feet, you knew they had to make that trade.
Yeah. Mister, what about you?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to say, I wish they would have kept Justin Fields. I mean, I would have kept him. The one thing that he needed was just more, talent, more weapons around him. You got Marvin Harrison Jr. there. He would have been great for him. It's been good to see, an Ohio State connection like that. But I would have most definitely, you drafted him first anyway, because you believed in, you liked what you saw. I mean, you got so the 3 years or whatever years he was there. I mean, what talent did he have around? I mean, he came into a fire. So whenever we talk about the environment, like Coach said earlier, you talking about the environment, your surrounding. When you bring when you drafting a quarterback young like that, and he's thrown to the fire, and you don't have weapons around him. I mean, you gotta help him out.
Absolutely. Jose, what about you?
I thought he was doomed from the jump because out of the big 3, quarterback, head coach, GM, he was there the longest. He was there. And then they hired Eberflus, and then they hired Ryan Poles. And I'm sorry, when you're the guy, I mean, if we put our GM hat on, you're going to make the choice that's going to keep your job. And I'm not quite sure. He didn't pick him. And I think Eberflus is next if he can't do anything here, because Ryan Poles is going to set himself up to be there a while. And I like Justin Fields. I thought he was dynamic. I mean, I just didn't think, to me, he's a perfect example of looking at what Jaden Daniels is going to do. He's going to be dynamic, but he's probably not going to have that many people around him to help him out, But I think that was the best thing for him to go. I hated that they did it because, I mean, just like Coach Weaver, I'm a Bears fan, environmental Bears fan. My family's there, but I just thought business-wise, he was the one that had the longest tenure and with the least results. So he was going to be the first one to go, unfortunately. And now anything that happens from here moving forward, that's on Brian Poles and Eberflus right now. So I think
you're right about that. Yeah, I'm sorry. And you're right about that. And that's the whole thing, with these GMs and different owners and player personnel and whatnot. Everybody want to draft their guy to say, this is the guy that I had. This is my guy that did this. And, and at the end of the day, okay, this is your guy. And you're going to be the one to go. But, who's best for our team and who long term? And, I think Justin could have been the best for them long term. But we'll see with Caleb. Hopefully he ain't painting his fingernails. I'm sorry.
I will say, you good. But I will say this, that the Steelers fans are already starting to troll the Bears and saying that Caleb Williams will be a Steeler when his rookie contract is up, because they had Mitchell Trubisky, who was drafted by the Bears. Now they got Justin Fields. It's like, well, we need a quarterback. Let's just let the Bears just do whatever they want to do with them, and then we'll just pick him up when we're struggling too. So I'm just saying, if that happens, I might lose my mind if he ends up in Pittsburgh for sure, being Caleb. But yeah, I'm torn with this. Like everyone was saying, a decision had to be made, and it's not a decision anyone would want to make. I was as shocked as most to hear that Justin Fields was traded, and it automatically solidified, all right, well, Caleb Williams is a Bear. And that's just how it is with me. Switching gears a little bit here, Jose, with you. We talked about it a little bit, but how do you think Marvin Harrison Jr. will be as a pro?
He's going to be uncoverable for a while. It's just going to be a matter of they're going to protect Kyler Murray to get him the ball. That's it. I mean, I think Kyler Murray is dynamic in himself, which hopefully Harrison will save him his career, not because he's a bad player, because he won't have to run as much. He's going to have a guy that's going to be open. And then you got Nuke on the other side. You got to double somebody. So one of those guys is going to be open. So I think, and I agree. I mean, I think he's low-hanging fruit to say he's the best player in the draft. That's a given. Yeah. And for him to go there with that, I don't know what their run game's going to be like, because they seem like it was running back by committee. And I think they got the guy from Miami, if I am correct, one of their running backs. I'm missing that. But if they can get a running game, look out. They're going to be pretty good. But Harrison, yeah, just like Bob was saying, watching games with him, they could have easily, if he was injured, they could have easily lost 5-6 games easily, but he simply took over games and it was uncoverable. Try to zone him, try to double him, try to bracket him. Didn't work. And let's be real, the quarterback was average at its best, and he still did his thing. And now he's going to a guy that's pretty dynamic, in terms of his legs or, getting the ball out. Yeah, I'm calling it now, rookie of the year. Just, he'll be rookie of the year.
All right. I'll say it here. You've heard it here first on the Ride Home Rants from Jose Jefferson, rookie of the year, Marvin Harrison Jr. But, Mister, what about you? How's Marvin Harrison going to shape up in the NFL?
I think he's going to be a dynamic player, coming from Ohio State. But not only that, having a father who he had growing up and watching him and knowing and understand the science and art to playing football and reading coverages and whatnot, he's going to be really, really good for a long time. And he stay healthy. What he's doing at football field, he's going to put up some amazing number if the quarterback is able to stay healthy and get him the ball, consistently. So I believe he's going to be, he's going to do well. He's going to break records. He stay healthy. He'll break records easy.
Okay, Coach Weave, what about you?
Yeah, I think he'll be really good. It's interesting what Jose was talking about getting him with Kyler Murray. It's, Kyler's a tremendously talented person. The back is actually James Conner, who I got to coach against when I was a defensive coordinator at Delaware. He was with Pitt. less than fun day in my career trying to figure out ways to get my guys to tackle him. Put everybody in the box, and Tyler Boyd was the wideout, and that was a problem too. So I think Harrison is he's like those guys. He's just one of those elite guys. It isn't really hard to predict that he's going to be a good NFL player. Big, he's so much bigger than his dad. Like, I don't think anyone realized that until this year. How much he's almost 6'4".
Yeah, a lot bigger than his dad.
Fast, and he's got all the same. Like Mister said, his blood lines are great. He grew up in a locker room, and those things matter when you have that talent. They certainly have. What to expect. He's not going to come in the league and flame out like some of these guys do. When he's going to know how to handle himself. He's going to be a mature kid, and I'll be shocked if he's not really, really good in the rookie of the year conversation.
Absolutely, Bob. What about you?
I said it before. I thought once again he was the best player in the draft. I think coming in, I think, like I said, if the Bears Fields would have had a good year, I think they might have traded down and didn't pick Fields. I think. But I just think he's going to be a dynamic guy. Like I said, watching him at Ohio State with a bad quarterback and still getting open and getting the ball to him. I think, once again, Kyler Moore as long as he's healthy, that offensive line, I think they'll be really bright. And I just think, I think he'll stand out. I think he'll be the best player. Like I said, rookie of the year is probably going to be up there with probably Caleb Williams. They'll be fighting for it 1 and 2, I think.
Okay. And lastly here, last thing I want to talk about is everybody's favorite team to hate on, and that's the Jets. Should they have drafted skilled players over the offensive line? I mean, Aaron Rodgers is desperate for a top-notch guy. Do you agree with the Jets taking the O-line, or should they have drafted differently, Bob?
No, I think they need the offensive line. I think they have the weapons there. They have a Garrett Wilson there. They just signed some of the offseason. I can't think of who they signed in the offseason. But I think the biggest thing last year was their offensive line was so bad last year. And I think it was evident early on why he got hurt, kind of, Rodgers. He was running for his life on a couple of plays already early on in that game. So I think they needed to build that offensive lineup. That was the problem the last couple of years. And if they get that going, I think Rodgers will have a good year. And they do have a lot of weapons. They have a good running back and a couple of good receivers. So I think they'll be all right. I think they needed 2 tackles on both sides to protect Rodgers. I think they would do good to get one of the better tackles in the draft.
All right, Coach Weaver, what about you?
Yeah, I agree with Bob completely. Everybody forgets that the wideout was the rookie of the year 2 years ago. Man, that kid's awesome. So he's still there. He's going to be really good, Garrett Wilson. And you build your football team, you build your baseball team. They say from the middle out, middle infield, your catcher. Football teams you build them front to back. If you don't have an offensive line, you just look at the older Carr brother. All those guys that have come into these disastrous situations and they get sacked 1,000 times. And it took Aaron Rodgers one series to get sacked for a season ender. So protect those guys. They're not sexy picks. I get it. But I think when you're around football, you know that you sleep way better as a coordinator or a head coach when your lines are good. No. They can cover up a lot of ills. You can be worse at quarterback. You can be worse everywhere if you can block and if your D-line is disruptive.
Okay.
So I agree with the O-line pick.
All right. Mister, what about you?
Yeah, I think it is whenever you can get a big ugly, as we say, a big, nice offensive lineman to help protect, run blocking, pass blocking, your stock kind of go up. And so you can never go wrong with getting a good, solid offensive line at any point. So I'm with that. You need the lineman to run protect, to pass protect. Them guys do so much up front. So I'm with that. You gotta be strong up front.
Okay, Jose, what about you?
And I said it earlier that I thought their draft picks are going to have to produce, and no, I thought they did the right thing. I mean, when you think about that question, I keep thinking about the Lions. That stretch where they drafted like receiver number 5, receiver number 4. I mean, and look at those guys. I mean, none of them outside of Megatron. And look, he even left because he's like, I'm getting beat up. And I just don't think I think it's a sexy pick, like Coach Weaver was saying, it's a sexy pick to get that guy that goes, wow, but you kind of want to protect the guy that you just spent, a gajillion dollars on to lead your franchise, So, no, I just think those guys are going to have to step in and play. And like Coach Weaver said, I mean, you can get away with a lot of stuff if you got a great line. The no, yes plays come from having a great line and so players. And, the Jets are stacked, though. I mean, in the specialty positions, they don't need any. There's not enough ball for the guys they have now, and that's including Rodgers. You think he wants to hand the damn thing off every time? No. Yeah. He wants to throw it every time, and he's got a great back to be able to tote the pill, but they don't have a good line. So, no, I think their line pick was solid, and they're good on paper again. So we'll see.
We'll see if they can stay healthy. And as if I needed to say this, that, of course, when Fiddy and I were coming up with the outline for this, being a Jets fan, he had to have a Jets question in the draft show, as everybody knows how big of a Jets fan Johnny is. But, yeah, I mean, I'm a fan of the O-line picks. People, like everyone says, yeah, it's not a sexy pick, but the Lions started doing it with DC, started working on the line. Getting the line, getting protection for his quarterbacks. Look what they're doing now. Now they're a team that people were talking about for different reasons. And I think the Jets might be there. Like Jose kept saying, they're good on paper, but we'll see what happens when the season gets started. But that is actually going to do it for this week's episode of the Ride Home Rants podcast and our NFL Draft Preview Show. I want to thank my panel of guests. I know we lost Hal, but he was here for a little bit. Technical issues. Jose Jefferson, Mister Askew, Bob Gavalier, and Coach Tim Weaver for joining the show. As always, if you enjoyed the show, be a friend, tell a friend. If you didn't, tell them anyways. They might like it just because you didn't. That's going to do it for me, and I will see y'all next week. The Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by W Energy. Energy drinks made for gamers, streamers, and podcasters alike. For gamers, streamers, and podcasters alike. Go to the link in the description where you can find the best energy drinks out there. Less caffeine than a cup of coffee. Also, no jitters and no crash afterwards. Use the promo code Mike Bono and get yourself 10% off. Also, the Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by my favorite sponsor of the show, and that is Shankit Golf. Golf apparel made for the everyday golfer. We might not go out and shoot a 6 under par. We're probably going to shoot a 6 over par, but this is going to give us the gear that's going to help us rock it on and off of the course. Go to the link in the bio, use the promo code Mike Bono, and get yourself 10% off there as well.